This is some old slides. If you've been to my presentations in the last 4 or 5 years, or even before that, just kind of updated it for you. So talked about the sales codes for the how to identify. We're all across the board with YF. Your different labels. I did kind of like the old Chrysler labels a little bit because it always gave you the oil part number. The SAE labels now will just identify PAG or POE. And unfortunately, nothing's really changed with Chrysler. We still have 14 different part numbers for oil. Just wanted you to know that we've kept with that tradition going. Okay? All right, so 3 different compressors. We're running the Denso, so not that you need to memorize it, but I gave you a list of what vehicles run the Denso compressor, which vehicles use the Hannon compressor, and which vehicles are using the Molly compressor or the Delphi one are there. So refrigerant, nothing changed on that. You guys have all seen this slide before, is what changed with YF. Then what everyone loves here is our refrigerant oil. Same old story. We've got a Denso oil, we've got a Hannon oil, we've got a Molly oil. So if it's a YF, it's one of those 3. Most cases, it's backwards compatible. So if I have a Denso compressor and a Denso that calls out an ND8 oil, I can use the ND12. Costs about 3 times as much for the ND12, but you can go backwards compatible. Same thing with the Hannon, the FT46 oil. The Mitsubishi Scroll. Now, you would have thought maybe we'd go electric, we could have got one POE oil. No, okay? So if it's a Mitsubishi Scroll on a Pacifica 500E, it takes this POE oil. If it's a Jeep, it's got a Hannon electric compressor, it takes a different POE oil. So just be happy that we haven't changed that. We haven't figured it out. We do have some noise, some customer complaints sometimes on the compressor noise in the hotter weather, or a lot of times spring comes and the customer wasn't running the air conditioning. Now all of a sudden when it's in electric mode, they can hear that compressor. And then this is just our parts catalog with our dozen different oil part numbers. So won't dwell on that. Oil capacities, so nothing changed there. How do you do oil capacities? The service info will tell you based on compressor, condenser, how much oil to add. If no oil remains, we do the whole system fill, same old story. There's the Robin Air dye injector we use, or oil injector. Same compressor specs, same performance tests. This is all should be old news. We have the graph performance tests and the regular performance tests that we've had for years. With you guys being on the SAE side know on all of this, but we do have to draw in outside air on an auto temp system. So we do have a bulletin that just advises customers it is normal to get warm bursts of air when it draws some fresh air in. That's a normal occurrence with a YF system, so you will feel some on a hot, humid day when it's drawing in the outside air. Same evaporator SAE guidelines, nothing new there. We did have some initial evaporator issues. In fact, I think some of you supplied me with some of these pictures of some of the 2018. We did add an anti-corrosion coating to them. So there's just some dye pictures of that. I tried to put in some problem stuff here. We still really push the AirSep. We sell this through Mopar on the cooler coating and cleaner. H valves haven't really changed, same basic test procedure. The condensers, almost all of our desiccant bags are now serviced in the condensers. So this bulletin came out for the Ram pickup where we had a leak at the O-ring at the bottom. It would typically be a cold weather issue when it leaked, when this O-ring contracted, and that was where you could buy the desiccant bag. So that's pretty much serviceable on all of our vehicles now. If you go into our parts catalog, the receiver dryer, you just unthread this and you can slide it out. You don't have to buy a condenser like that was happening initially. Let's skip through these. We got about 5 minutes here. The ports. Oh, here's the other thing I learned this year. What's that little Torx fitting on the top of all of our AC caps for?
Torquey.
Torx cap. We have Torx specs on our AC caps. Maybe the engineers all knew that, but from a regular service guy, I don't think I ever put a torque wrench on it.
I don't have a torque wrench on a gun.
Okay. You don't have that. So I learned something. That was something else I learned this year. You know, as soon as you so when you are looking at the caps, one we have, you know, this is old news to all of you guys, but I mean it's that one thing that we overlook is we stick our gauges, our machine on, and before we forget to obviously check the port. Maybe that's where the leak. So we just came out with a Star Online case, talking to fill it up with some POE oil in here to check for leaks for it. And then we came out with the torque specs. So AC line caps are an important part. Remove the high and low caps, and the torque tool can be a clicker or an inch-pound torque wrench of 2.5 inch-pounds. You guys all have a 2.5 inch-pound torque wrench, right?
Yeah.
Click. So there they showed you where to get the torque wrench. So see, you learned something. How to charge a battery and how to torque the AC cap. So it was a worthwhile day, right?
I feel like checking the valve would be more important than the cap.
Yeah, you're right on something. Well, the caps is the secondary seal. So then I just gave you some common stuff that we've seen over the years on different vehicles, where to look for leaks. So when you get the copy of the deck, you can kind of go through some of the things that I've seen some issues with, and we've had some bulletins on. There's Renegade, some Star Online cases of just some places to look if you've got a hard to find leak. Strayer valves. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever used this. I know GM has had it like with Suburbans. We used, you know, back with OTC and Kentmore and Miller were kind of all combined. We had this tool for splicing. This works really well. Lock ring, that's usually been at this lock ring has been at this conference. I've talked to them, but they make this. We sold our dealers that. You can repair any aluminum line here. I got the Mopar connector pieces. So you buy the tubing, you buy like a 5-foot piece of tubing, and you buy the connectors. The tool works really well. So there's all the part numbers if you need it. Obviously, you could use that on any brand. Contamination. 1, 2, 3. I don't know if anybody's ran into this, if I need to get too carried away, but we screwed up. Our assembly plant had flushed out their YF tanks back in 2020, and for about 2 weeks of production, the solvent they used to flush the tanks messed up and caused the contamination on our end. So it only applies to like 2 weeks of Journeys and 2 weeks of Jeep Compasses, but it turns it into an epoxy. Most of those I think have been through the system. I don't know if anybody's ran into it, but there's a bulletin and it talks about the proper way to handle the contamination. We got TSBs. The catch is, how many of you have a separate YF set of gauges that aren't part of your machine? Oh, you guys are pretty good. The dealers don't, you know? So what's the first thing they're gonna hook up? The machine, and then they find out that it's contaminated. So hooking up a set of gauges is kind of what they call it. But most of you aren't gonna know that if you haven't seen the bulletin. So I think most of these are through the system, but anyways, that was one thing. We screwed up, the plant screwed up on that. Obviously, Robin Air, we sell the dealers a recovery machine for contaminated refrigerant. And then let's see if there's anything else on the equipment that I wanted to cover. The flushing, we've gotten a little more open on some of the flushing. We do have procedures on flushing the vehicles. That, you know, it used to be, no, we don't do any flushing. We have gotten a little more open on that. The Robin Air machine, flushing through it. We're using the Molly machine on the 2 warranty ones. There's our oil injectors. We sell both the AirSep, the Robin Air. What we do from the factory, the tracer dye is still used in the dryer. We've been doing dye since 2012, starting actually in 2011. There's the adding dye if you want to, and 929.